Hello, welcome to this live stream. My name is Bård. I have Daria with me from the engineering and developer experience team at Crystallize.
Hello.
No. We will be talking about the checkout flow and how you can build your own checkout flow in Crystallize. And we will try to make the minimum possible effort in order to do a full round trip. So that's what we will do today. And of course, what is a checkout flow, you might say? Well, it's basically the process of first, you need to fetch some product information. So fetching the product data from Crystallize, we'll take a look at that. Where the SKU is the unique identifier. And of course, we have the pricing and all the marketing information that we're interested in. We will add a product to the cart. We will do a very simple one and talk a little bit more about advanced cases. We also did another live stream dedicated on the shop API, so just the cart management. So check that one out. We'll also go into creating an order intent and finally pushing an order to Crystallize. So the full round trip from looking at the product to placing an order with that product. So that is basically the topic of today. But if we start at the beginning, Daria, with let's start at the product side of things, because that's where it all begins. And what are we looking at now?
So this is your product in Crystallize. All of these are variants. You can have as many variants as you want. This is the pretty view. And let me go to the developer view so we can see the query. So this is the query that fetches basically everything about the product. You obviously need to optimize it based on your requirements.
Yeah, so this is basically the API Explorer here, where there is a default query there. Don't use that in production because it fetches everything. So we will do a little bit more optimized example for how we fetch the data. But you can see immediately from Crystallize, even from the admin UI in Crystallize, where you manage the product information, as soon as it is published, it is available via the APIs. So it's a real-time access to the product data. We have done several live streams on that, how to fetch and model the product data. But what if you want to just run a simple API call to fetch the core, let's say the core product information of this particular product?
Yeah. So for that, you would go to the catalog API, which is our read-only API. And I have a list of example queries that we published earlier this week. So it contains the most used queries people usually ask us for. And this is a work in progress. So we will keep iterating on this. So this is the fetch product query, which fetches the basic data about a product and its variants that a cart might require. So I'm just going to copy this, put it here, and then I need to change the path of the product. So I'm just going to go here, and this is the path, copy it, and then I run the query. And here we have all the information about the product in terms of pricing and SKUs and names of the variants.
And this is basically what you would use to create a product page in your e-commerce storefront or wherever you're selling the products, right? So you have access to all the core data, but also the marketing, like the images and the description and things like this. So that's simple enough. And of course, this is GraphQL. So in the actual Explorer here, you do have auto completion also if you want to add other fields or components to your data. So you can basically have a look at that. Not that we need to add it here. And you also always have the documentation available. So for those that are not that familiar with GraphQL, this is kind of neat because, well, it's pretty easy to figure out how to build a query, and you have it all available there as autocomplete and the full documentation. So you're fetching the product. This is cool, and of course it's a super fast API, this one. So a few milliseconds and you have the data. We actually just need the SKU here, because one of the things that the next step is making possible is to do all of the hydration for you. So let's jump at okay. So we have the product information on a web page, and we pretend that we're clicking a button. What would we do in order to add that product to a cart?
And this is where the shop API comes in. So it takes care of all your cart-related queries and mutations. You will need an access to a bearer token to access this API, and the documentation states how you can do that. So we can probably link it in the description. But once you've done that, you land here. And to hydrate a cart, it's a very simple mutation. It's called the hydrate mutation. And then it takes in an input of items. And items can be an array. And here I just add the SKU. So let me just get the SKU of a product. I can just do that from here. So this is a product variant, and this is the SKU that I can copy. Do that, and because it needs a subfield, I can just ask it to return the card ID it's going to create for me. Because this is my first time hydrating the card, it's going to generate a new card for us. So once I run this, here we have a card. And this ID is important because for every further query or mutation you make for this card, you will need the ID.
Nice. So it's basically just providing the SKU, and then the API creates a card for you. And it assumes you're adding one, because you can also specify there if you want to have more, right? Quantity. But it also fetches the prices and sets everything up in the cart for you. So it's super simple. And of course, there's a lot more you can do with the hydration and manipulating the cart. We will not be doing a full deep dive into all the bells and whistles of that, because we did that in the last live stream, which is linked in the description. But maybe we could do one example, because one thing is adding a product that is in Crystallize. This is nice, and makes the happy path very simple. But you often have things like shipping, for example, and that very often comes from a third-party API service like DHL or FedEx, and you get specified shipping based on dynamic calculations. So that is something that you often want to add to an order, and that means that that shipping product is something. It may have an SKU, it has a price, and it has a description, but it doesn't live in Crystallize because the shipping is managed by DHL, for example. So what you're doing now is basically adding an external item, so an external cart item to the cart, right?
Yep. So for that, I need the cart ID. So I'm just going to copy that. We also need to add headers here, because they're not. You need to add headers with every tab you open. So there we go. And then I'm just going to add it takes an input, which takes in information about the external item. So it can have variant. You can add SKU.
And here you basically, the SKU needs to be unique for the cart, but you can decide what it is, right? So typically you can do something.
I'm just gonna do
exactly
this. And then you can add variant, which takes in a price. So because this is an external item, you need to define the prices yourself. So I'm just going to do net post. And then variant takes in, let me just double check. It takes in the product too. So I need product ID here. I need a path. So I'm just gonna there we go.
Nice.
Looks like this. I forgot the name. So I'm just gonna add the name here too.
Yeah, you need the name of the product.
There we go.
So this means that you can actually use the shop API and manage cart with products that don't live in Crystallize. That's super handy.
Yeah.
I mean, shipping is one case. Another case that we see in, for example, in publishing, where you might have a primary and secondary product database. So maybe you're managing your own, let's say, books in Crystallize. Let's say you have 400,000 books. But you might also want to allow for external books, because as a publisher, you typically can order a French 1800 poetry book, something like this, which of course you don't have as a primary book, but you have access to this international book database of maybe 17 million books, right? So that you could have an e-commerce setup where you have the primary products that are managed in Crystallize, what you would merchandise and what you have in stock, things like this. And then you can still allow for adding external products both to the cart and also push that to the order. So it means that you can easily connect different sources of product data in the checkout and also in the order with Crystallize. And this is kind of part of what we state as we are unopinionated, as in you do you, and decide how you want to build your checkout, and we assume very little. But one of the things that we do here with the cart API is basically making a lot of the happy paths automatic. So adding a product that exists, doing the tax calculation, doing discounts, and all of these things we're managing for you automatically. So you get both best of both worlds there. Should we take a look at the query? If let's say I just want to fetch my cart. Now you've added 2 products to the cart, one external, one internal.
Yep. I'll do that. So just do query. It's cart.
And again, this is the same ID that we're looking for.
Variant SKU. Do we want to fetch any more information?
We can start with the SKU, but I guess we want to look into a little bit more, like the pricing and what it costs.
Yep.
But yeah, let's start with basic query like that.
Yep.
So, and this is of course what you would use in order to build your basket page. Click what do I have in the basket or the cart. I guess that's US versus UK wording. And you need
the
credentials.
Authorization. Yeah. There we go. And here's the information about the cart.
Nice. So it manages both the calculation, it manages the storage, of course, of the cart. And what else is interesting? Maybe a total, something like this?
Yeah. The state as well. So cart can have 2 states, cart or place. When the state is cart, it's you can modify it as much as you want. But once it's placed, it's no longer editable.
And this is important to be aware of, because We have seen e-commerce implementations where you're able to start the checkout process. You're kind of sending, okay, this is the total, but then being able to mutate or modify the cart afterwards, adding more products. So once you've locked or placed the cart, there's no way to modify it. And that's what you would do as part of the checkout process to guarantee that it's not manipulated when you're starting an actual payment process there.
Yeah. So I added the total field, and we're just fetching the net gross and tax amount. And the shop API does calculations for you, like Bort mentioned. So you don't need to do anything there. Yeah.
Beautiful. And again, link in the description to a deep dive into all the bells and whistles of the shop API, how you can manage even more advanced stuff. But let's move on. We have a cart. We have some products in it. We actually have a internal and external product.
Yeah.
So what's next in order to complete the checkout process?
So we need to place an order now.
Yep.
Which would be done via the orders API, but we need to build the order input now, right?
Yep.
So the shop API does that for you as well. But before you can create an order intent, you need to place the cart. So I'm just going to do that now.
And this is basically just saying that this cart cannot be modified anymore.
Yep. And I'm going to get the authorization headers. And there we go. The cart is now placed. And now I can get an order intent. So I'm just going to do it here. Query order intent. I obviously need the cart ID again. And it just gives back the order intent for this photo. There we go. So this is an order intent that the orders API will take in.
Yeah. So it's basically the order intent is the JSON that you can send as a graphical query to create the order. Again, in Crystallize, we like to be unopinionated. So you could say that we could have a call here that just would push the order, but you actually have to push it yourself. We're doing the heavy lifting by generating the query or the payload for the query. And the idea is you're now able to modify the order intent before you actually place the order. If you want to do some additional manipulation or adding some special meta information or whatever the reason is. So that's the reason we do this, and we generate the order intent for you. So that's beautiful. It's quite simple API call. Just fetch the order.
Yeah. Usually you would also have customer in your order intent, but the shop API only takes care of the cart part. So you will have to edit that. Yeah. And now we can place this order. This is a JSON though, and the orders API is going to make a GraphQL request. So I had to remove the quotes around the field names.
Yeah.
So the cart will be a bit different than it's here.
But of course, this is what you would do programmatically. So you wouldn't use the APIs manually like you're doing now, and then the JSON is the proper way to work with the data.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just going to add some customer information.
Yeah.
Can add multiple addresses, but just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to add one.
And of course, now you're adding this in the order mutation. You are able to also hydrate the cart with that. So when you hydrate the cart, you can provide the customer information, but it's you can just as well just add it directly here as an example of also mutating or modifying the order intent that you got from the shop API.
Yep. So I'm just gonna place the order now. And here we've placed an order, and the API gives us back the order ID. So I can now go in Crystallize to check the order. Here we go. This is our order.
Beautiful.
Yep.
That's a round trip.
Yeah, that was very easy.
That was easy. And of course, there are more things you can do with the API, more data, meta information on the order and the cart level and the cart item level, things like this. So plenty of more good stuff that you can work with. And maybe we can briefly mention also now that the order is pushed to Crystallize. So because Crystallize is focusing on order capture and orchestration. So once the order is placed, we're actually firing off webhooks. Well, you can choose to listen to webhooks. We don't fire off webhooks that you haven't created, but where you can listen to different concerns, as they're called, where you basically can listen to order created, updated, things like this. And the second part of the orchestration is also what we call fulfillment pipelines. And this is basically different processes for different types of products. It could be giving digital access to software, for example. It could be having a process for in-store pickup, or it could be a specific process to do a subscription renewal process, so to handle the failures and the success of the different payments, for example. So it's quite useful in terms of being able to orchestrate post sales. So I guess that's it. That's the quick round trip from fetching a product, adding it to the cart, creating an order intent, and finally placing an order in Crystallize. We didn't talk about payment here because this was an order without payment, so typical, let's say, a B2B order. But of course, you can also add the payment information to the order when you're doing the checkout. Basically, you would get the order intent, and you would send a payment request to, for example, Stripe. You will collect the feedback once the payment is approved, and then you will place an order based on that.
We do already have a number of payment provider integrations for our boilerplates, and also in our library if you use JavaScript. So these are the payment gateway options you get. And the library you would go to is the Node Service API request handlers.
Yeah. And that also shows you how to add your own, because it's pretty straightforward to add your own payment provider there. And by the way, pull requests are welcome if you're adding a payment integration. All of this is open source in terms of the libraries and the integration parts. So just join the Slack community and do some pull requests from our GitHub repos. Cool. I think that's it. Short and sweet. So thanks for watching. See you in the next one.
Bye.